It is Wednesday, June 18th. Welcome to Citizen McCain. I'm so happy you're here. I'm here, as always, with my old friend, Miranda Wilkins. Miranda, we have to share something with the audience that we're very excited about. So,
Yes.
yesterday, here in DC, had the privilege and was given a really wonderful opportunity to interview extremely famous, notable, compelling figure who does not give interviews basically at often or really at all. And we had a really wonderful conversation. It was basically everything I could have hoped it could have been and more. I'm not allowed to say who it is yet, but it will be coming out. I'm allowed to say the day it's coming out. It's coming out in. You will know on Monday. We will have a
Oh,
teaser with the video on Monday, and then the actual interview comes out on Wednesday. But I'm very excited about it, and we all worked really hard. I want to thank my team and you, Miranda, and everyone for helping me prep so hard. And it was a really lovely experience. And I have news to share in it, and they have news to share in it, and it was just fun. It was a really fun experience, and yeah, we have a big interview coming up, an exclusive that no one else was able to do. So is there anything else you know all about it,
I
Miranda? Is
do.
there
So
anything
I'm
else you
trying to
want
be
to
very
say?
careful about what I ask. Have you ever
Not
done
allowed to say
anything?
who.
Have you ever done anything like that before? That
I
on
have
that
done,
level?
yeah, I've interviewed, and it is on the level of like presidents. I've interviewed presidents before and ex-presidents. And I've interviewed like people in the height of the heat of like huge controversies, like Stormy Daniels and people like
Hmm.
that. But I would say it's definitely the biggest one I've done in a really long time. And it was, I don't know. I really couldn't. Last night I came home and my husband was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "It is literally everything I could have wanted it to be plus more." And this figure is someone who um everyone will know who this is. They are extremely famous and extremely well known. And like I said, haven't given a few tiny interviews, but nothing this long and nothing this intimate. I can genuinely say that. And I am really excited about it. And I know everyone's so annoyed. I hate teases,
I
but the
know.
trailer the trailer will come out Monday, and then the hour plus interview will come out Wednesday. So
Oh
right
yeah.
here
How
on
long
Citizen
did you
Kane.
guys talk? That's a long
over
time.
over an hour. They were able to sit with me over an hour. And again, I just want to thank their staff and this person, I'm not saying a gender,
Yeah.
for their time and just they were really lovely.
I can't
Everything I could
wait.
have hoped and more. So I love when things work out. I love when things, sometimes I've interviewed people in the past. I'm sure you have too, Miranda, and I've certainly interviewed them with you or with you producing me where you're like really excited about it. And then they come on and you're like, oh my God. And then it's like, so sometimes you interview celebrities or people are, really well known and it is, really disappointing and you're just like, oh God, they're just not to like name names. Like I interviewed Kevin Costner one time and I'm the biggest Kevin Costner fan like there is. And he just was like giving me nothing. Like I was like, give me less Kevin Costner. So it's like, and I think he's a nice guy. And I'm sure he's been doing media 10,000 years and he's like, whatever. But, and then sometimes you interview people and they're just so amazing. Like I remember interviewing Joel McHale and he was like the most fun,
Oh, that's amazing.
cool, person ever. So you never know. You never really know.
There's
Anyway,
nothing worse than trying to talk to someone and it's just pulling teeth to get them to say anything more than just a couple of words. So I'm really glad that this worked out yesterday because you worked incredibly hard on A, getting it, but B, all of the prep work and the questions and all of the research, everything was just so
it was a
fabulous. And
giant team effort
really,
for you and Ashley and all our producers and people at 2A. And my last final thing is this came about because our team was texting around the convention last summer and the inauguration. And I was like, I am so fascinated by this person. I
mhm.
would really love to have the opportunity to interview this person. And you and the team were like, let's give it a shot. And
The
somehow
worst they can
we
say is no,
And they did
right?
not say no. They said yes. So here we go. Okay. We will stop talking about this. But like I
Yes.
said, look out for the trailer on Monday and look out for the interview live on Wednesday. And like I said, I just want to give one more big thank you. If anyone from their staff is watching, we had such a the whole thing was just like absolute wonderful experience from moment it started till we left and totally amazing. Okay.
That's
I
fantastic.
promise
Can't
you, I'm
wait.
not hyping this up too much. You guys are going to like it. Um, really quickly, is there anything, everyone has a lot of anxiety about what's going on with Iran and Israel. I think that there's just a lot of unknowns and questions that we're unaware of. But I want to show you this clip, Miranda, just because I want your take, and I want you to be as like gossipy, juicy, bitchy as possible because that's what I
Okay.
love about you. So this last night, I think it came out last night or this morning. I apologize. I've had like 5 hours of sleep. There's a video of Tucker Carlson interviewing our friend Senator Ted Cruz, who, by
Ooh,
the way, we
this was good.
love.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I want to show this clip really quick so Miranda and I can react to it. But this is like, I don't ever want to hear anything about women being dramatic on TV when crap like this goes down. Number one, please.
People living around, by the way,
I don't know the population.
at all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because,
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that
because if
relevant?
you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay, this is
no,
cute.
it's not
Okay.
even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
Okay,
actually,
I
the
am
country...
not the Tucker Carlson
No, but
expert on Iran.
You're a
who
senator
says,
who's calling
okay,
for the
you're one who
overthrow of the
claims-
government,
You're the
and
one
you
who
don't know
claims
anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
No,
You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out
I'm
if it was a
saying
good
you
idea to
don't
kill
believe-
General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really
we are
believe that...
carrying out military strikes today.
Oh my gosh, this is so, I've seen this like 3 times and we just watched it again. And
Every
I just want
time.
to say one thing. The weirdest part about Tucker Carlson to me in general is that he does this thing where he maniacally laughs. And I said on Twitter or last night that like, why is he always laughing like he's the clown from It trying to lure children in the sewer? And he's like, ah, ha, 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 ha. Like, yeah, I'm not doing a good impression of it, but like every interview, he has like a tick. It's like a Kamala tick where he's just like saying something that's like serious and probably offensive and egregious. And he's like, ah, ha, ha, ha. And I'm just like, what is, and I pointed out and it got a lot of likes and retweets. So clearly I'm the only one thinking that. But what do you make of this, Miranda? I mean, messy,
Ooh.
messy.
The MAGA split is coming. And this is like probably the biggest indicator of it. I mean, it started a couple days ago with Marjorie Taylor Greene being really upset about all of the stuff. And she was tweeting, anti-interventionism and no new wars. And this is not what you ran for and all that. And now it's Ted Cruz, who I'm surprised he's being this hawkish and like spilling tea so publicly. I mean, that was breaking news that we have because
I
up
don't think
until
it's
that
breaking news.
but up until that point, the line of the administration was, we're not getting involved, we're not doing anything. And now it's like, okay, well, we're helping or we're sending stuff and all of that. And it's like, aren't these the same people who were jumping up and down screaming at the convention, anti-war president, this and that? And I'm just very surprised to see it. And also, it's just, that was really fun to watch because
Yeah.
just two people screaming at each other is my favorite genre of TV. So,
Oh, same.
yeah.
Same.
So that just felt very like Bravo messy and it was exhilarating. I haven't been that cringy in a long, long time.
Well, also Senator Cruz, again, who is, I need to emphasize, a friend both personally and professionally to this show, and I love him, and I think he's like so entertaining. I think he's like easily the most entertaining person in politics other than Trump. And the fact that he was like, "You're saying you don't know anything about Iran," he's like, "I didn't say that." Like, it just is so. I don't understand. If you say, "Hey, Megan, what's the population of the city you live in?" I actually have no idea.
I don't know either.
Like, I don't know what this relevance of that is. I mean, I'm sure he knew it was like somewhere in the 100 million, but I just don't even understand like what the purpose of that kind of question is other than for Tucker Carlson to spiral out. There's also, and again, this is like allegations, but Laura Loomer tweeted alleged evidence that he has been paid by Qatar. And again, please feel free to go look at her Twitter account or
That
it's all
Tucker
over
has.
Twitter. And Tucker Carlson has
Yeah.
as well, which would explain why he's just so vociferously defending, Iran and, has very bizarre messaging about this everywhere you can. But I give it up for Senator Cruz going on that show. There's nothing on the planet that can get me to go on Tucker Carlson's show. I'd
Oh,
rather
no.
have a root canal. But I would.
When he
If
said,
you said a
"That's cute,
root
this is
canal or be a
cute."
guest on Tucker Carlson's show, I'm going with the root canal. You can do all my
No,
teeth.
Novocaine, yeah. Yeah. When he goes, "This is cute," that might have been my favorite part because it was just precious. I want to see more of that. I would watch 2 hours of that easily. It was so
I would
funny.
watch. Same. I hope that the interview comes out today. I will watch it though, because I'm interested in what Senator Cruz has to say. But I love men screaming at each other. I don't know why you and I are messed up. I should welcome to our show our old friend, Nikki Schwab, who is the Daily Mail chief campaign correspondent who also covers the White House. You can follow her on X at Nikki, Nikki Schwab, or on Instagram. Nikki, we're so happy to see you. We love you. We
Yay.
missed you.
Baby, how are you? I was
Hi, Nikki.
listening in on your Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz back and forth.
We want your
amazing.
opinion on this.
Mhm.
What do you think?
I only watched a little clip. I feel like I'm so, Trump focused, but I was like, woo.
Would you like to watch it again? Because I can watch it again.
I mean, I could watch the whole thing. I could make popcorn. That sounds great.
Let's play it one more time for Nikki, because I really do want I legitimately want your assessment, because what Miranda's saying about the MAGA breakdown, I think is really relevant to the situation. Number one, please.
People living around, by the way,
I don't know the population.
at all.
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that
because if
relevant?
you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay, this is
no,
cute.
it's not
Okay.
even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
Okay,
actually,
I
the
am not
country-
the Tucker Carlson
No, but
expert on Iran.
You're a
who
senator
says,
who's calling
okay,
for the
you're the one who
overthrow of the
claims-
government.
You're the
and
one
you
who
don't know anything
claims.
about the
This is so
country.
funny.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
No,
You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out
I'm
if it was a
saying
good
you don't
idea to kill
believe-
General Soleimani, and you said
don't
it was bad.
believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really
we are
believe that...
carrying out military strikes today.
Okay, I don't know why I find this so entertaining, but I do.
I'm gonna watch it
I
again
don't
and
know
again.
why
Hot
Senator Cruz
fire.
is on the show. Go ahead. What do you think, Nikki?
I mean, I'm also fascinated by sort of this MAGA civil war. And actually, President Trump addressed it a bit this morning at the White House. And I have a good quote for you. He says, "My supporters are more in love with me today than they were even before the election." So, he thinks that
Fair.
he can do whatever he wants and they'll stick with him. And that could be. But right now, we're obviously seeing a lot of resistance if he decides to, go in with Israel on this campaign against Iran. And I think that, if there was sort of we'll say smaller strike, a limited strike, I think that, MAGA would potentially be okay with it. But I think that if we're talking about regime change or something bigger like that, which could cause another, as he called them, forever wars, you could see a lot of issues with his MAGA base continuing to support him robustly.
Yeah, I think what Miranda was just saying about the convention, because one of the biggest takeaways I have seen of like the shift in the ideology of the Republican Party is we are the anti-war party now. Like no
Yeah.
more forever wars is a big part of the platform. And, we could have a whole other show getting into the psychology of how that happened. But I actually have been surprised how hawkish President Trump has been. And I've been surprised to hear that he is listening. And again, I'm not speaking out of turn. I have a good source on this, that he's listening to people like Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton. Like he's listening to the most hawkish people, and pro-intervention people probably in the Senate. I'm conflicted on this. I continue to be conflicted on this. I do not want regime change or a forever war at all. I also don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, and I support Israel. Is that something that can exist in this moment? And where do you think realistically Trump actually stands on this?
I mean, if they just take out this one nuclear facility, does that accomplish those goals? And can it accomplish those goals? Potentially. I mean, that seems like the most sort of obvious answer. Take out the nuclear program. All these people on TV are calling it mission creep. Don't allow mission creep, which basically means like going further than the original plan, which is to take out the nuclear facility, and then, then let Iran figure out Iran, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you can't. I don't think any American, and I mean, you look at the polling on this, nobody wants to potentially deal with a regime change in Iran. I mean, and
Mhm.
there's no sort of obvious, there's not going to be a coup. Who's going to take over Iran, right?
Mhm.
So uh, it'll be interesting to see. But I do think that there's sort of a way out of this. There's a way to support Israel. There's a way to have a sort of limited mission. And then there's a way to sort of appease MAGA, being like, hey, we're going to do this one thing, but we're not gonna, stay involved in the region. And I think that, I mean, that was sort of the big reason why so many people have sort of moved to, I would say, sort of moved to the left on this issue, become more sort of anti-war, is because we just, stayed in Afghanistan forever, stayed in Iraq forever. And I think that, I mean, our generation especially was really impacted by that because we had so many people fighting those wars. And so now, I think, most people are sort of like, we can't be throwing American taxpayer dollars away to be involved in the Middle East for another decade.
Mhm.
Just a reminder to please raise your digital hand if you have a question for Nikki, Miranda, or I. Nikki, I think that's a really good point. I was trying to explain to someone yesterday that, like, specifically millennials, the generation where we were teenagers in 9/11, or,
9/11.
yeah. And then my entire adult life up until 2 years ago, my entire life, my brothers and my family member, my extended family members, my husband's family members, just deploying, surge, Afghanistan, Iraq, like all the time. And it became part of my normal. And one of the things that has happened since we left Afghanistan is that, people are literally starving to death and like selling children to get food. The vacuum that was left. I mean, I'm not saying the Taliban should have been in charge, but I'm just saying we
Yeah.
didn't leave it a place where like
No.
there was regime change in a stable country. And I don't think that makes me like isolationist. I have questions. I was sold the lie of weapons of mass destruction, just like everybody else
But
was.
yeah.
And I just have questions. And I don't agree with Tucker Carlson because I think, quite frankly, I just think he's unstable. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. He
Fair.
just doesn't come across like someone who's having like a normal conversation. But do you think that the Trump administration is aware that even among like more hawkish people like me, there's still like, I want to take a beat. I want to talk this out. I want to hear lots of different, opinions. And also, this was not part of his platform when he was running for president. Are they aware of that?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, his whole thing was no forever wars, and time again, we're not doing World War III. Like, it's not happening under my watch. I'm not going to get us involved in these multi-country messes, which this could become. And so, I mean, I think that like Trump, Trump has to show some restraint because this is what he's promised his
Mhm.
base. So, I mean, we'll see if he does, but.
Mhm.
I still
Mhm.
I still don't know if he's actually fully made up his mind on what to do. I think that if they can show him, as I was explaining earlier, that there is sort of a path to support Israel, take out Iran's nuclear program, and then pull back to not sort of further escalate this conflict, I think that would be the road that he would most likely take.
Miranda, anything you want to add before we move on from this?
I would just say kind of like President Trump isn't really known for keeping all of his promises or staying in his
Fair.
lane.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I necessarily am going to go with that line of thinking. And I hate to be like fatalist, but it seems like he's just easily swayed by other men in power. And so when he's speaking to Netanyahu and he's like, this is extremely urgent and important, but we
Yeah,
know that they've been planning this for 2 years. I don't see how we don't get involved.
I think that also sounds right. So,
Um, what? Oh, we have a question. Very exciting. We have a question from. Thank you so much for joining it from Josh. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry, Johnson. Johnson, thank you so much for calling in, raising your digital hand. We appreciate it. Do you have a question for
Of
Nikki,
course,
Miranda, or I?
I
And
I
where
do
are
have a
you?
question. I have a question for the whole panel in Tampa, Florida, and particularly Megan, you may be able to speak to. Are you all able to hear me right now?
yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, great. Well, so it's a very interesting topic that we're on, and I think it's timely. I saw this portion of the interview on the evening news last night with Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. And I'm curious if Megan, you could speak to, and then Miranda and Nikki, what some of the considerations of Senator Cruz or of a senator would be a congressperson when there are so many things going on right now with the big, beautiful bill. We have, of course, Iran and Israel, and in the financial markets. The Fed is set to make a major announcement, probably going to have rates hold steady, interest rates hold steady. But what might be going on in the mind of a senator, and perhaps Tucker Carlson was trying to put Senator Cruz on the spot. Maybe that was the intention. But what maybe was going through Ted Cruz's head, and why he may not necessarily have had the population of Iran at top of mind.
So what do I think that was going through his head during that and why he decided to go on the show?
Well, he may have known that Tucker Carlson was going to ask about Israel and Iran because of how important that conflict is, but maybe what some of the considerations or what some of the topics may be front of mind for someone in Senator Cruz's position, and why that turned into a sort of a back and forth as opposed to keeping the big picture and America's interests at the forefront.
Yeah, well, Tucker Carlson, from everything that I've watched and read about him, has turned into a extreme anti-war isolationist that I don't know if there's any scenario where he would think military engagement of any kind was worth it. And he, was upset. Senator Cruz brought up Soleimani in the episode because Tucker Carlson was angry when in the first Trump administration, when we took out Soleimani, who was one of the worst terrorists on the planet. I think most Republicans, and actually, if you're interested, we actually have a Harry Enton clip if you want to see. There's actually good data on this. Let me show this really quick and then I'll finish answering your question, Johnson. Do you have that number? I know we have it. Sorry, my producer's right here. Anyway, while she's getting that, I think it just shows, I think Senator Cruz likes a debate. He's like a very high level, I believe
He was like a national debate champ or something
yeah,
too.
like a Harvard, oh, here we go. Okay, really quick.
Well, I feel like there's more support for Donald Trump's positions than is comically acknowledged. Oppose Iran getting a nuclear weapon. I mean, look at this. 79% of adults agree on that. They agree with Donald Trump. Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. 83% of Republicans, 79% of independents, 79% of Democrats. When you get 79% of Democrats and 83% of Republicans agreeing on anything, you know that that position is the very clear majority in this country. And so the American public is with Donald Trump. They definitely oppose Iran getting nuclear weapons.
So I think that is relevant because you're seeing 83% of Republicans, 79% of Democrats agree that they don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. So that's why it's always important to stay off the echo chamber of social media, where it's not just comic Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson giving their opinion that is, according to that data, in a very severe minority. And I think Senator Cruz went on because he likes a debate. He could obviously handle Tucker Carlson, and he probably wanted to, go on a platform where he could debate him on his side of the argument. Just knowing Senator Cruz personally, I don't know if he would have anticipated that level of hostility from Tucker Carlson. We're good friends with Senator Cruz's co-host for his podcast, Ben Ferguson, too. But I don't know. I think he probably just wanted to go on to debate his side. What do you two think, Miranda and Nikki?
Well, first of all, he was a debate champion at Princeton. So
Thank you.
so there you go. I know. I think that, like these debates within MAGA are important. I think that Senator Cruz, I've never seen him shy away from a debate. I've seen him go back and forth with journalists on Capitol Hill and sort of rib us a bit. And I mean, that's just who this guy is. I think that, most of us in DC don't know the population of most places. So I sort of understand why he wouldn't necessarily have that top of mind. I think he's probably more so, as you're sort of saying, that he's focused on the big beautiful bill. They have to get that passed. He's also focused on the actual sort of strategic military, like what the U.S. is actually planning to do with Iran. Sort of those details, those classified details. I assume those are sort of more important to him than sort of facts and stats.
Miranda, anything you want to add?
I was just thinking, like, Tucker's line of questioning, I get where he was going with it, because it's like, let's mitigate civilian casualties. Why are we bombing them when they have so many people in densely populated areas and sending them like evacuate now warnings at 2 a.m. their time? But at the same time, it's like, why is Ted Cruz expected to be the expert on Iran? He's just there as a speaker from the administration to say, hey, this is what's happening. Let's talk about it. Let's see how it's going. So it was just a very tricky gotcha. I don't like anything like that, but I will reiterate, it was very entertaining to watch, and I will be watching the full thing.
Thank you so much, Johnson. Anything else you want to add before we go to our next question?
No, thank you all for chiming in, answering the question, and I think, it's provides some background and perspective to what might be going on in Senator Cruz's mind as well as Tucker Carlson. So thank you all for answering the question. I thought you answered it perfectly.
Thank you,
Thank you so
John.
much
Thank
for joining
you.
us. Thank you. All right. Our next question is from Colin. So glad you guys are raising your digital hands. Sometimes
Yeah.
people don't. Welcome, Colin. Where are you located? And what is your question for me, Nikki, or Miranda?
Hi, I'm joining from Tallahassee, and I'm a big fan. First political rally actually I ever went to was for your dad in 2008 in Tampa. So it's really cool
Thank
to be here.
you.
But so with all this going on, something interesting that I read in the news this morning was about Tulsi, and they're trying to make it sound like there was a rift between kind of their stances. And like overall in this issue, I'm kind of not really understanding like the view of people like Tucker, how they kind of took Trump's anti-war message in the campaign to mean like no involvement. And someone commented, and they kind of put it perfectly that like no forever wars does not mean isolationism. So I was
Yeah,
just kind of
that's
wondering,
good.
because
Yeah.
I know that you are very close with Tulsi, kind of what's the truth in all that, and how are things working?
So I candidly have, I talk to her every day because we're good friends. I think it is, there's a Politico article that came out yesterday from Rachel Bade that, like, if people are curious to what Colin's speaking about, it gives a rundown about the alleged rift between the White House and her. But then at the end of the article, Vice President Vance comes out with an extremely strong quote about her that's like she's an integral part of the administration, an integral part of, the foreign policy view of our team. And I'm butchering what he said, but it's a kiss to her and showcasing how important she is. And we all know here how important Vice President Vance's opinion is, and that President Trump listens and takes counsel from Vice President Vance. So I think she's fine. And I think, she hasn't said anything publicly about what's going on with Iran and Israel other than she supports President Trump and what he's doing right now. And the thing I feel bad about is there's a clip going around of her talking about how Iran in March we're not making nuclear weapons. But the part that's being cut out of the interview is when she talks about the fact that they do have like the largest amounts of uranium that they've ever had with the capacity to make nuclear weapons. So people are acting like she somehow like misrepresented herself. And I'm her friend, and I think it's a hatchet job from people who don't want to hear any kind of arguments, a fully formed 360 argument on any side. I don't know how she fully feels on this. I don't know like what she would say to, or I do know she's been at the White House talking to the president. That's been reported. So I just, I think people are going after her because she is someone who is always going to be an outsider, and some of these establishment people would love nothing more if she weren't serving. And I would literally bet my entire bank account and my house that she's not going anywhere, if that's helpful. Colin,
When I think
anything?
a big reason why they're scared of her is, in my opinion, she will be our first female president. My dream ticket for 2028 would be Vance Gabbard. Like, she's great. I've been a fan of her. I'm very conservative, but I've been a fan of her since 2020 because she's not afraid to, stand out and speak out when she sees something that is clearly wrong, even if it's going against the grain of her own party.
Thank you. And I agree with you. And I would obviously love that ticket as well. I have no insight into that whatsoever. And I just, like I said, I think she's she has, one of the reasons why we became such good friends is we're both threatening to people, and we both trigger a lot of people. And I think there's just people who don't like the fact that she's a former Democrat, that she has different views on a lot of different things than they do. But I think she and JD Vance are millennials, and they're much more indicative, I think, of where millennials stand in general than a person like Lindsey Graham, who I think is in his mid 70s. And quite frankly, I know Lindsey Graham too. There's not a war that he would invade Canada, there's not a war that man wouldn't support.
Greenland.
So like,
Puerto
yeah,
Rico.
he would.
Greenland.
He would annex Phoenix. Like he would it's just, I don't take anything he said seriously because there's not a war he wouldn't want. So, and I say that with confidence. I've known him since I was 10. So I don't know if any of that helps you. Nikki or Miranda, did you want to jump in on Colin's question?
Well, I think that the sort of the alleged rift, which I think that you're right, Megan, there's not an actual rift, also wasn't helped because like Trump on Air Force One, when he was coming back from the G7,
Yes.
again, it's like, 1 or 2 in the morning. It was been a long day. And he was asked about her assessment from, what you said it was March. And
Mhm.
he made like a catty remark to, I think it was Caitlin Collins. And so like that didn't help because the optics looked bad. Now, from what we know, going into this week, pretty sure that Tulsi Gabbard was in the Situation Room yesterday. I'd heard some rumblings that they actually like started the meeting a little bit later so she could get there. So I do think that, and also talk about it politically, like if Trump were to kick Tulsi Gabbard to the curb, I mean, that is splintering off a big piece of this, major coalition that he put together during the 2024 campaign. It was her and it was RFK Jr. And if either of them, leave sort of Trump world, you're talking about, droves of voters that potentially would leave with them. So I think there's also going to always be a political calculation there.
I totally agree with that, Nikki. Anything you want to add, Miranda?
I was going to say what Nikki said about the overnight remarks. I don't think
Right?
we can take that too seriously.
I blocked that out of
considering-
my brain. Also,
Well,
Caitlin Collins is so messy. Like she's just like
Well,
she
and
knew
so
what she
is
was
Trump.
doing.
Trump is messy too.
Yeah.
So it's just kind
And
of
it
like,
was 2 in the morning. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the plane, and they were wheels up at 1:15 a.m. our time, so 2 hours behind, so 11:15 p.m. Mountain time, and then I don't think Trump came back until like an hour into that flight. So it's like 2 a.m. So I think that take that with a grain of salt.
and also resurfacing a clip from 3-4 months ago is kind of crazy when things happen and situations are fluid and active. So, like change your mind when presented with new information. That's pretty much the vibe of that.
My take too, Colin, just like to put a pin on this, is that Tulsi and I are extremely close friends. I would like go so far as to call her one of my best friends. And she is just very triggering to people who want DC and the establishment and things that have always been to remain the same. People who like, a Lindsey Graham, people who have been in office for a million years that don't want any change, no generational change, no ideological change. They do not like her. And
Just say
that I think
boomers.
is boomers. Yeah, that's actually better, like boomers. And
Swamp
I think,
monsters.
but
Okay.
every person I know that's like in our age range and calling you look younger than me, like adores her. And sometimes I go out in public with her and, people like cry and like, especially like veterans and people, if they're like, people get like, I have only seen it with 3 politicians in my entire life where people have this like emotional reaction. And I just think I agree with Nikki, like at your own risk to like mess with her following and the coalition she represents and the people who support her and love her and support what she has to say. Like politically, just good luck with that, because I think it would be cataclysmic for the Trump administration.
In
I
terms
really
of
do.
messy, if there's a divorce between Tulsi and Trump, and also RFK Jr. and Trump.
Totally agree. I really don't see either happening. Like, I really don't. I don't think they're that stupid. And I just think that this is overblown drama for the moment. I really like your "don't tread on me" flag behind you. Is there anything else you want to ask, Colin?
Thank you. That was it. I mean, I did real quick. I appreciated your tweet so much when Trump was calling out Tucker and you were saying "shoot it into my veins." Like that was my
Yes.
exact reaction to that. Like finally, someone is saying it.
Well, I just, again, like I should fully like candidly say to all of you, like Tucker and I do not have a good relationship and we haven't for years. Like ever since, like when I was 13, he made me cry. Like I haven't liked Tucker like basically my entire life, where I had like a brain pulse. And I haven't spoken to him in an extremely long time. And the last time I spoke with him, it was very, very heated. And it was I mean, I guess I can talk about it. He was mad that Roger Stone, do you guys know who Nikki knows who Roger Stone is. He's like the sort of disgraced, but I guess he was pardoned by Trump, political operative. He had tweeted that my dad was going to burn in hell when it was announced he had brain cancer and like hell was waiting for him. And then when Roger Stone was sentenced to jail, I said something like, "You're going to be in hell," or something about him in hell. And Tucker didn't like that. So, and I was drunk in London and had some things to say. So let's leave it at that. last time I talked to him. So anyway, that is so I just don't like him as a person. Like and I don't like his commentary. And I know he has a huge following, and I know there's probably a ton of people out there, like, he has much bigger following than I do. But, it's delicious for me to see Trump yelling at him. I love it. Do more of it, Trump. Thank
That
you, Colin.
Thank
G7,
you for having me.
Yeah, come back anytime. Thank you. Go ahead, Nikki.
that G7 missive where he was asked about, he's with the British Prime Minister and he's asked about Tucker Carlson. He's like, what did Tucker say? Maybe he should go get himself a TV network so people actually listen to him. I was like, oh boy, okay, that was a burn.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
spicy. And Trump gets so he's so catty on social media. Like, he's like an insult comic, but also kind of like a teenage girl. And
Mhm.
Like, he
again,
can
whatever.
on it, like in a sort of a perfect way. Like he like knows the quip and he delivers it,
Yes.
kind of like smiles and then like saunters off.
He
It's
said
great
something
TV,
to
yeah.
Dana Bash last week, and she was like,
COVID.
talking about, yeah, she was like, she was asking for people that missed it. She was like, all these people, these Iranian whatever people have been killed. How did that happen? He goes, well, they didn't die of COVID. I was like, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. It made me laugh so hard. Nikki, I want to go to a piece you just wrote all about the physical changes that Trump has made to the White House. Number 3, we have pictures that were featured on the Daily Mail where you work of the demolition happening at the White House lawn. Trump is apparently remaking the White House to put his stamp on it, including gold gilt in the Oval Office and portraits. And now, can you tell us about the construction that's going on the North and South lawn? And has this, I'm sorry, I don't pay attention to this kind of thing with the White House. Is this
Yeah,
common?
Well, the Bidens actually didn't do much of it. They weren't that interested. But President Trump, former builder, he sort of tinkered around a little bit in the first term, but now he's very much trying to make the White House into sort of the image of a Mar-a-Lago or a Doral. And you see this today, actually. He was at he was in the South Lawn because they're erecting these 2 massive flagpoles, one in the North Lawn and one in the South Lawn, which is very similar to, he was talking about how they have one at Doral and it's beautiful, and there's one at Mar-a-Lago, just like huge, massive flagpoles. He's also digging up the grass in the Rose Garden so he can turn it into an event space, sort of akin to the patio that he has at Mar-a-Lago. He's always sort of wanted to use the Rose Garden for more events, and we saw this in the first term. He actually had a state dinner. It was beautiful. It was under the stars for the Australians. But they had to sort of put like a fake dance floor down in order to actually like put tables down and everything. So now people aren't super excited about this. Take out all the grass. They're going to put some infrastructure in, and then you'll be able to use the Rose Garden as a sort of a party space. But sort of the big thing that Trump is saying that it's happening, and we'll see, is that he's going to build like a ballroom somewhere on the east side of the White House campus. They still haven't actually said if it's going to be in sort of, there's like a detached east wing. You could maybe knock out some walls and put a ballroom in there, or if it'll be actually like a separate side building over on that side of campus. But they apparently have a site. They're sort of getting their ducks in a row. Trump is saying that he's paying for this, which I'm a little dubious. We'll see if that happens. But he also said the same thing about the flagpoles. We'll see if he actually writes a check so there's a new ballroom and there's flagpoles. But it's kind of interesting and actually the backstory in the ballroom is kind of fabulous, because he actually originally pitched the ballroom in 2010 to David Axelrod. He called up David Axelrod amid the Gulf oil spill. So David Axelrod is dealing with that mess. Trump first pitches to him, "Hey, I'm actually a builder. I could plug the hole in the Gulf of Mexico." And David Axelrod is like, "I don't know about that." And then he goes, "But I also have a great idea. I really think that I should build you a ballroom," because Trump took offense to those pop-up tents that the Obamas used for their state dinners.
That's really funny. Is there an element of this? Look, I think the White House is obviously stunning. And, it's, for anyone who's ever been, it's such a privilege, and it's a really unique experience. For whatever it's worth, I'm very sensitive to energy, and the White House has some of the most intense energy I've ever felt anywhere in the Oval Office. I've never experienced, I feel like I'm like in like Star Trek, and there's like something beaming into me, but there are parts of it that could do a little bit of a facelift just because it is an old building. Is this welcomed by people, or is this the kind of thing people are going to complain about the expenses?
I think that, so for example, when Melania Trump changed sort of the Rose Garden in term one, and it was like replantings, there wasn't a huge change, but I think that she actually did sort of like the sidewalk sort of around the Rose Garden, which has now been dug up to sort of fully uh, pave over it. But people didn't complain about it until it was done. So I think that if you do, I think that people, as you were saying, Megan, you're not really paying attention to this. I think like once people see like, oh my God, there's no more grass in the White House Rose Garden, people are going to freak out. But at the same time, as a journalist who covers events in the Rose Garden, it's going to be a welcome change.
What other, like in regards to this, and then obviously Miranda, jump in if you want, just can you tell me, is this historically unprecedented? Because I know the Rose Garden, I believe, was like enacted with the Kennedys, if that's correct. And, like I'm not against like changes happening in the White House. I just hope he doesn't make it all gold, like Trump Tower.
I think I could see the ballroom being pretty pretty gilded. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, you've probably maybe been to the Waldorf Astoria in Washington. That was a Trump
Beautiful
ballroom. The ballroom at Mar-a-Lago is pretty. Like it's I mean, it is over the top, but I mean, I think there's a way to do it. That's sort of more in line with the sort of traditional White House aesthetic. So.
Mhm.
I feel like you had another question, and I forget what you asked.
Oh no, anything you want to add, Miranda?
I am very concerned to see what the Rose Garden looks like as basically almost like a outside museum. Is that what it's going to kind of look
Well,
like? Where
like,
it's just all walkways? I need to see the plans.
so like the Rose Garden, what is technically the Rose Garden is sort of the plantings that it's the plantings that are sort of around that space. And then there's grass. There's like a rectangular piece of grass.
Yeah, he said that everyone was like ruining their shoes when they were standing out there for events or press or whatever.
I mean, that's
the high heels, right?
Yeah.
That they were
yeah. I
getting
mean,
messed up.
it's grass. So if you have stilettos on, you know what happens. You sink. So that's the part that's going to pave over. The actual Rose Garden will be intact. But I think that most people look at that whole space as the Rose Garden, and when they see all the grass is gone, they're going to be like, "What the hell?"
Mm-hmm.
Nikki, you've been traveling to the Middle East with President Trump last week, and you've obviously been covering all of what's going on. Pardon me, last month?
Last month.
Oh, so sorry. Last month, not last week. Sorry. Of course, last month, not last week. My notes are wrong. Ashley, you're fired.
My
No,
bad.
I'm
No,
teasing.
I had a
was
typo in them
it.
first, so it's my
totally
fault.
fine. But can you tell us what it's like traveling with President Trump? I mean, I've obviously never done anything like that before. What the vibe is like right now? Does he seem like a happy warrior? How is the vibe of his staff? Does it feel more open to the press with you than the last administration did? Like, can you just tell us what it's like?
I mean, he's always been sort of more open to the press. So I had never done an international trip with him in the first term. I started, flying on Air Force One internationally, but with Biden, and they were much more sort of closed off. Biden never really came back and, talked to us in the press cabin. Trump during term one would actually talk to us a lot off the record in the press cabin. And now he's basically like on the record all the time. He comes back, he gaggles, almost, on almost every trip he usually has an encounter with the press. I would think happy warrior is actually a good way to describe it. I mean, that trip was sort of crazy because we arrived first thing in the morning in Saudi Arabia after flying, it's like 18 hours or something absurd because you have to refuel in the UK. And then we, had like a 12 to 13 hour day on day one just with the Saudis. And then the next day going to Qatar, and then the next day going to UAE and then flying back. So, I mean, talk about like an insane schedule. And when he came back and actually gaggled with us right before we were taking off on the last stop, which was in the UAE. And he was like, I have stamina, you have stamina, we all have stamina. Because it was just, I mean, and he was like delighted that he was able to sort of get through such a grueling schedule and, still had a little snapping his fingers, and he was still like looking pretty good after probably only a couple of hours of sleep on a different time zone, and going to three.
That schedule sounds hideous.
Yeah, I couldn't do
God.
that.
And like even like and it was a state dinner every night. So so the first one was with MBS and the Saudis, and then he was with the Qataris, and the Qataris, he had like a receiving line of like 100 people. So we're just at this point, I'm not in the pool, so I'm just sort of watching on TV as he's greeting every single guest, talking to everybody. I'm like, I don't know, it was wild.
Mhm.
The
Which
energy.
which country was he received? I mean, maybe it's all of them, like had the
Oh,
most, all of them had the warmest reception.
I mean, I think we were sort of laughing that they were all sort of trying to like one up each other. So like in Saudi, they had the Arabian horses, but then in Qatar, you had the camels. And then by the time you got to UAE, they had like the hair flip girls. Have you seen
I
that?
didn't understand that. I assumed it was a cultural tradition, but
Yes,
for people that have
cultural
seen it, it's
tradition.
like women throwing their hair everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't in the pool that day, so I actually missed seeing that in person. But and when I say the pool, there's always like 13 journalists sort of dedicated to covering the president, and so we switch in and out. So I was in the pool the full day through Saudi Arabia, and then I was on the ground the last day in the UAE, and then I flew back with him. So I actually had both flights, which was nice.
hmm Is flying on Air Force One fun?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yes. I mean, I hear people are like, oh, it's dated, it's old. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a 40-year-old plane, but it's still Air Force One, and the food is great.
Oh.
I keep hearing, I feel like you told me before that like the food is absolutely delicious. And the one time I ate at the White House, I was like, this food is like spectacular. Like it's like the best food ever. I mean, good for us to have good food on Air Force One and in the White House. What can you, I know you can't like give us your scoops or anything like that before they're printed, but is there anything you're working on or you're interested in at the moment that you could share with us? This is such a wild time to cover the administration. And I feel like this Trump term is like Trump on acid because he knows his time is finite. Is there anything in regards to what you're covering in the administration you can share with us?
I mean, I'm actually this week sort of turning my attention a little bit to the Democrats because
Okay.
I'm curious. I'm sort of looking into how they're going to run in the next two terms, 2026 for the midterms, 2028, and how much it's probably going to be against Trump. And one of the things that we're noticing is that they're starting to actually do what the Republicans did to Joe Biden and sort of point at some of Trump's, I would call them old age issues. So we've seen Trump. He most of the time is pretty vigorous, but he's had some gaffes recently. He had a little trip up the stairs of Air Force One a couple of days ago, which, as you remember, everyone like lost their minds whenever anytime Joe Biden, and he did multiple times, stumbled on the big stairs of Air Force One. It also feels a little bit like karma because Trump, continually made fun of Biden and all of his old age issues. And I think Democrats are looking at that and saying, hey, I mean, they did it to us. We can do it to them. The question will be, how potent that will be, because I think a lot of voters right now look at the Democrats and they're like, yeah, but you guys seem like you were maybe covering up some like bigger stuff. And I don't know if, those attacks will work as effectively on Trump, especially if he's like, his Middle East schedule, like I came back and I was like half dead for days. So I mean, it's a little hard to potentially maybe use some of those political attacks, but we'll see.
On that subject, one of our favorite topics on the show is talking about just like what the hell's going on with Democrats and can they rebound. There was actually, I'm sure everyone's been following this, but Senator Padilla from California interrupted a press conference with the Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem, yeah, and was like reprimanded. I don't know if he was arrested, but he went on the Senate floor yesterday and got extremely emotional. I want to show you this clip and then get into it. Thank you.
I was forced to the ground. First on my knees, and then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway, repeatedly asking, why am I being detained? Not once did they tell me why. I pray you never have a moment like this.
Okay, we can.
But I will tell you, in that moment.
Okay, he goes on to get emotional and make this very dramatic. I think everyone's looking for a YouTube moment. The problem is he was highly criticized for his behavior, including by Democrats and including on CNN. I feel like Democrats are just like fighting a blowtorch with like, like a tiny cup of water. Like it's like not even like there's no ammo with any of this. I think he's a great example of it. Uh why are they so toothless and they can't seem to get their ground game and get their feet anywhere? I just find it fascinating that Democrats just can't seem to understand the culture moment we're in right now.
I mean, I think they can't understand the culture moment we're in right now.
Mhm.
I think they've lost their grasp on some of sort of their natural constituencies. I'm mostly thinking about younger Americans. I mean, those numbers are sort of interesting because I think that, our generation had always tilted more liberal when we were younger, and now you're seeing that, the younger generations are sort of more interested. I mean, I think Democrats are still as a whole winning younger voters, but Trump has made inroads, and I think that they don't know what to do. There's not necessarily, I mean, right now I would say that Gavin Newsom is probably kind of the de facto sort of leader of the party because they don't really have a natural other leader. I think most Democrats don't want to see Joe Biden anywhere, and they don't want to see Kamala Harris. So it's sort of a leadership issue. It's a messaging issue. There's, one thing that I think, Steve Bannon has sort of talked about is you're sort of throwing everything at least journalists, throwing everything at us all at once, and you don't know what to cover. And I think that like Democrats are in a bind too, because there's, do you attack the White House over the ICE stuff? Do you attack the White House over going after Harvard? Do you attack the White House over, I don't know, building a ballroom in the East Wing? I mean, what is the message that's going to resonate with voters to potentially help you in the midterms? And I just don't think they know yet, and they don't necessarily have a natural leader. And I think that, Newsom, it's interesting to me because I use my parents as examples because they're longtime Democrats, and now they're sort of like, ooh, Newsom, exciting. Which they're from Pennsylvania. They're not sort of people that would be naturally inclined to be interested in a California governor as a potential like presidential candidate. So I think that like, he is having a bit of an impact, but I've always thought, with his political future, it would be really hard to sell to the entire country the idea of a California liberal.
Mhm.
That with Kamala Harris, quite honestly. So
Miranda obviously lives in California and you
Mhm.
are center left. Do you like the idea of Newsom?
I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff with Gavin Newsom. He's pretty toxic, but like there's a lot of memes saying like he's toxic, but he's our toxic king. So I don't know. He rides really hard for California, so I can't fault him for that. About Padilla and the other Democrats, I don't know that I agree with the toothless comment because it's kind of a lot to confront Kristi Noem and just start shouting at a press conference. I mean, just if you have to scream to get your point heard. And the way that they did remove him or extract him from that was pretty intense, the original video of it. So
I just don't
I
know what
agree
a
with Nikki
US
that the
senator is
messaging is
doing.
all over the
He
place.
can meet with her
I'm sorry.
anytime he wants. He's a high-level US senator from the fifth largest economy in America. He can just ask for a meeting with her. The only reason why he did
Yeah,
that is
but
he
I mean,
wanted
if she
attention on
refuses the
social media.
meeting, yeah, and I mean, but it was effective because everyone's been talking about him over the last week. So, if that was his intention, was to highlight himself or his plight or the people of California, it worked. Whatever he was doing.
I don't think a crying California senator is going to be a good image for Democrat. I just don't think these people should be crying. I actually like, of all people, oh my gosh, Rahm Emanuel. I like his
interesting.
I just like that he's like tough and he's like, stop talking about the bathroom, but I'm a Republican and I know that a lot of Democrats don't like him. I do want to ask you, Nikki, a rumor I keep hearing is that the donor base and people within the DNC like JB Pritzker, because and this is a direct quote, to fight oligarchs with oligarchs because he's a billionaire. I believe I don't even know him. Go ahead.
Well, I would say the donor base probably likes JB Pritzker because they'll have to spend less money because he's rich.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think he's someone that could be legitimate? I'm not, I don't know. I have no idea because I don't know enough about him.
I mean, he's interesting. I mean, he's sort of good on the stump. Uh, but I, I don't know. I don't think he's in. I actually, I don't think Democrats will end up nominating someone that we sort of know now. I feel like, there'll be some sort of news star that sort of rises up in the next couple of years as sort of like an anti-MAGA force. And, I
Yeah.
mean, like Barack Obama came from the state Senate, and then sort of exploded into the Senate and then to the White House. So I guess we'll see. But
Yeah.
there's
Sorry, Mayor Pete. It's not going to be someone. Really quick, Nikki, we have a question from Lucas
yes,
popping in really quick.
raising his
Lucas, hi.
hand.
Oh,
Hey,
it's nice
doing
to see you
well.
again, Lucas.
Nice
You've
seeing
called
you.
in last week. How are you? Do you have a question
I
for me, Nikki, or
appreciate it.
Miranda? Yeah, how are you?
First off, I want to say, as an Illinoisan, J.B. Pritzker is the worst governor in the United States.
Oh, really?
He
There you
does
go.
not deserve to be
Wow.
president for what he did during COVID and what he did to
Okay.
Chicago during COVID, and just his utter hypocrisy. He's bought he's bought everything he's ever earned. He's bought his governorship, he bought the primary, he bought his Republican opponent when he didn't like the Democratic chairwoman, who was Robin Kelly, a U.S. rep. He ended up kicking her out. She's honestly running for state senate just to try and screw him over and just to make sure his lieutenant governor does not get in the U.S. Senate. So there's a lot of people in Illinois that aren't that fond of him, even on the Democratic side, if I'm honest there. Um, but getting off that topic, really quick, Megan, one thing I noticed yesterday, and I don't know how yourself and just the two-way community is kind of dealing with, um, I guess, like Iranian kind of misinformation to a certain degree. I don't know how to describe, with the exception of, like, I had seen that Mark had spoken yesterday and was talking about when Israel had bombed that one Iranian state media kind of building. And he kind of was making it seem like it was a Iranian BBC, when the exception is it's more like the Iranian, what do you call it? The more like the North Korean kind of like Tokyo Rose kind of vibe. And I don't know. I just didn't know the reaction to that and just kind of how to deal with that, really. Sorry.
I
Think we
think we
lost her.
lost two-way.
Uh-oh. Oh, you guys can, yeah, talk about whatever you like, though. On either of those topics, I guess. Sorry, Megan.
I think we lost Megan.
I think we
Yeah.
scared her off a little bit, unfortunately.
I mean, I would just I don't know for sure, but I would think that
I'll
the
change my
back.
screen so I can see it. So sorry, Lucas. We had some technical problems.
No, you're good. Don't worry. Don't
I
worry.
didn't leave on purpose. Wait, really quick. I'm so sorry. Could you repeat your question really
Oh,
quick?
So long story short, my question was just how you, as being here at 2A Media, is dealing with Iranian kind of misinformation. I noticed Mark had talked about an Iranian state media building that was bombed by Israel. In my personal opinion, that media is kind of like that kind of crazy North Korean like woman, but also it's kind of like a equivalency
Yeah.
to like a Tokyo Rose. Also, my opinion. I just didn't know your personal opinion on that, but also how you're personally dealing with it, because there's just so much going on.
I'll answer, and then I think Nikki should answer too, because obviously you're a journalist. I try and really like quadruple fact things and not just take things off Twitter, because I certainly have had, moments where things are going around on Twitter. There was something actually about a nuclear plane, like a plane that was allegedly not used for nukes ever, that was taking off, that was like totally fake news. And all the comments underneath were like, actually, this plane flies everywhere all the time. Why are you scaring people? So I try and really do as much fact checking as possible. Luckily at 2A, we have very talented producers who, spend a lot of time helping prep me and get our notes together. But it's certainly like jarring. And, it doesn't help that there are allegations that people are being paid, to spread propaganda from our adversaries. I don't know, like I said, the level of truth to it, but they're very strong allegations that are getting a lot of attention at the moment. Nikki, how do you sift through what's real and what's fake?
Well, Lucas, specifically on your question, I would think that the Iranian media, the state media that was bombed, as you were talking about, would be, fully sort of, an arm of the state. So as you were saying, more akin to something in North Korea, not like the BBC where they have, independence. Their editors, their producers have independence from the government. Same with our, National Public Radio. That is its own newsroom. The government can't come in and say, what they should report on. I know that now the Republicans are sort of killing off some of their federal funding. It's only 1% of their funding to begin with. So, I mean, obviously that's never good, but you're still, NPR is going to, remain. There's going to be, no huge hindrance to that. As far as sort of sifting through what is real, what is not real, I mean, it's difficult whenever there's breaking news, but you're always sort of trying to double check with sources. I mean, I cover the White House, so they're a good resource for at least what the Americans are doing. And you can also message people at the Pentagon and find out what we're up to. So, I mean, I hope that's helpful.
No, thank you. I was just curious, and just because I enjoy your guys' commentary, but it was something I noticed, and just it's a lot of craziness going on, as you're very well aware, Megan. I mean, it was weird that they said supposedly Mossad had assassinated former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, but then later in the day they didn't, and that was a weird couple hours.
Yeah, there's propaganda everywhere, like in all ways. And again, I think it's important for me. Like sometimes I just have to really get off social media too, because it's just such a sewer sometimes of just insanity. And I mean, a lot of people have been like tweeting things at me where they're like, "You're being paid by AIPAC and whatever." I'm like, "No, I'm not." That's like a completely absurd accusation. And also, like, if you were being paid by something like that, you would have to declare it publicly, and I follow the law. I'm not being paid by AIPAC. The only people paying me right now is Two-Way, and my social media accounts like Substack pays me and things like that, but I don't have any association with anything other than Two-Way. But it's just people are just crazy and trying to get their side the most attention as possible. But I appreciate you asking another question, Lucas. Thank you. As usual, we love having
One last
you.
comment before I just go. I do think you should have on your show Andrew Heaton. I'm pretty sure you know him.
Oh, I love him.
I love Andrew. I've met him multiple times. I consider him a friend. I think
That's
he'd
such
be
a good
fun on the
idea.
show. It's like an 11 o'clock noon thing. He can definitely make it. He's in DC. He doesn't
Would
fun
you,
with it.
Ashley, write that down? Ashley, Lucas, my producer's writing that down. I've actually known Heaton for
I mean, him,
such
Jennifer Briney, or Justin Robert Young, they're all friends of Andrew Heaton, and he knows a bunch of fun, cool people that I think you'd find interesting and
He's
suggest
such a funny guy. He's like so funny and so original. I agree. We'll definitely put that down.
He's so Midwestern and just so genuine, and he makes me look mean, and I'm Midwest nice too,
I met him when I worked at Fox News a long time ago, and he was a booker or the producer for Kennedy's show, and he was always wearing the most beautifully tailored suits to work every single day. And I met him because I was like, "You are the most well-dressed man I've ever seen in all of media." Like just suits with like, vests and like jackets and pocket watches and things. And I was always like just so struck by how he presented himself, because it was so obviously like, respectful. He take himself so seriously. And there's a lot of people that work in those kind of places that just like show up in hoodies and jeans. And he's like an extremely well-dressed man. So I really like
I always try and dress up whenever I meet him or go to events, because I know he's going to outdress me, quite frankly, and I'm the gay one, so that's the weird thing.
Thank you so much, Lucas.
Thank you.
Come back anytime. We love talking to you.
Appreciate it. Bye.
And Nikki, we just want to say once again, we love you so much. Please come back on the show literally anytime you want. You always have the best gossip, the best reporting, the most interesting sourcing. I can't say enough wonderful things about the work you do. You can follow Nikki's work at the Daily Mail. You can also follow her on Nikki Schwab on X and on Instagram. Nikki, anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, I mean, I'm just hoping the next couple of days we have some sort of conclusion to what's going on with Israel and Iran, and maybe we can have a peaceful long weekend, but we'll see. But it's always so great to see both of you, and thank you for having me. And let's do this again soon.
Come back literally, Nikki, anytime you want. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Miranda, anything you want to say before we say goodbye to everybody? And I normally never see the Zooms because it's just our heads in a box. And I can see lot of you like exercising and doing all these like so thank you so much for
Oh,
including me in your routine.
I turned them off because they get distracting. I find myself watching them and then not listening. So
Every single one of you joining. There's also people like I can see a lovely person sitting, I think, on their porch. But thank you so much for joining. It's so nice to have everyone. I never get to see the audience. Maybe we should do that more.
a lot of questions today, which was very nice. So keep
Yes,
doing
please.
that. That was
They
fun.
want to talk to Nikki. And again, great news
I do too.
today.
Nikki's great.
Everybody wants to talk Nikki. Okay, keep in mind we have a teaser coming out on Monday for my big interview, and then the big interview comes out Wednesday. But you'll know who it is with on Monday. I swear to God, on my life, I am not overhyping this. This is a very famous person who has given almost no interviews, who decided to give me the absolute privilege of talking to them. So, and there's some really interesting things that they reveal. I swear, you're going to say, Megan, you didn't overhype it.
You
I
haven't
promise
even
you.
told me anything that they said. So
I'm happy to tell you
I'm
everything.
I'm in the dark. So
I was
can't
just
wait
exhausted
to watch
yesterday
it.
afterwards.
I know
So
yeah.
it
was a big,
like,
it was a lot.
I gotta go to bed. Okay. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back same time, same place. Oh, I will also be, I'll be in Arizona on Monday. So my set will look a little different and we will obviously keep you guys informed. We found a lovely studio that is going to help me out while I'm home. It'll be the same show, just in a different location for a few episodes. So we'll all survive. Thank you so much. See you back on Monday. Bye.